It's back. The United States back in the World Cup. We are here. It's been a long-waited time, but the games are finally here. And in group stage, you get your 90 minutes, and that is absolutely it. And the first 90 minutes is over, which means we're headed into extra time. On this episode of the U.S. Men's National Team Soccer Podcast, we are going to break down the USA versus Wales game. I got my friend Chris here with me. Stay tuned. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. We got a lot to talk about. All right, Chris, the first game is underway. It's completely done. It's not underway. It's over. It's in the books. One word, describe the game. One word.
Is that a word? Does that count?
I think it counts. My word, I thought about this one before I asked it, and I was either going to say frustrating or heartbreak. And I
Frustrating popped into my head.
I lean a little bit more towards heartbreak.
Only a little bit frustrating.
Yeah. All right, so before we dive into this, for anybody who's listening who doesn't understand what we're about to talk about, the World Cup gets played in sets of phases. The first phase is the group stage, and then the second phase is normal. It's just basically single elimination. They give lots of weird names like knockout round and stuff, but if you're familiar with the March Madness bracket, that's really what you're looking at later on, but that's not where we are. So here's where we are. If you're not familiar with soccer, the World Cup is going to play group stage games. It's 8 groups of 4 teams. They are going to play a round robin, and at the end of the round robin, the top 2 teams in the group are going to move on, and the other 2 teams, as they said in the broadcast today, they get an early plane trip home, and their tournament comes to an end. So how that works is there are wins, there are losses, and there are draws. You get 3 points for a win, you get 1 point for a draw, and just like every sport, you get nothing for a loss. There are lots of tiebreakers, which we are going to get into as we break this group down, but long story short, 2 wins will get you through, and a win and a draw most likely get you through, and everything else is going to get really, really awkward. And the United States, the last time making it through the group stage, I believe, was 2 draws and a win. Is that correct?
I think so.
It was very
years,
strange.
so.
8 years ago. It was the Thai-England, Slovenia beat Algeria, I believe. And it was nerve-wracking to say the least. But before we get into any of those other things and talk about where we are and talk about any of those other things, let's break down this game. Chris, we're going to start with the starting lineup for the United States. How did you feel about that starting lineup?
I was happy with it. I have no complaints about it. Like, maybe I would have a couple other players, but there definitely was nobody out there who I said shouldn't be there.
Right. It's been a long time since I felt like this was a starting 11 that I was going to be excited about and look at it and, say, wow, this is great. And I was actually backing out of my driveway to go get my dog. So my dog got fixed today. She got her surgery. She's fine. She's got the cone of shame on. You'll see her in the background. And my dad was loading up the vehicle. They were here to watch the game with me, but then they took off to South Jersey to see my grandfather for Thanksgiving. And as I'm backing out of the driveway and I'm waiting for the cars, I'm like, oh, it's 1 o'clock. The roster's out, starting lineup, but I pull it out. I actually pulled my car back in the driveway to get out of the car and tell my dad the starting lineup because I just couldn't believe it, right? The first big thing I didn't really expect to believe was that Tim Ream was starting. The next thing I didn't expect to see is that Josh Sargent was starting. I don't think anybody else on the roster would have surprised anybody. Everybody in their typical positions, right? Along the back, you had Dest, Zimmerman, and Robinson alongside Ream. The midfield was identical in Adams, Musa, and McKinney, and then Pulisic on the left and Weah on the right. That is pretty cut and dry. That's been run of the mill. That's been the bread and butter for the United States. Matt Turner in goal. So with the addition of Tim Ream and the addition of Josh Sargent, that was quite a starting 11, to say the least. You think it paid off, Chris?
I do. I mean, look at the first half. You don't have to ask me if it paid off. Look at the first half. We crushed them that first half.
Right. I mean, and it's something we knew that was going to happen, right? Wales knew that that we wanted possession. We knew that they drop into that low block. We knew that we were going to outpossess them in the game. And so there were a lot of things I thought we did great in that first half, and then there were a lot of things I really would have liked to see more of in the first half. But I know you got a lot to say, so just unload, unscripted. Just tell me about the first half experience from your end.
Well, before we actually dive into the gameplay, can I just say I'm very thankful that we get to watch these games on Fox and not ESPN, that we get to listen to Stuart Holden tell us what's going on in the game and not Taylor Twellman.
That true.
Was wonderful.
That's very true. The downside to it, if you're anybody else, it does mean you got to listen to a bunch of other guys before all the games. But if you're like me, you had that muted, or you were too busy doing other things. But yeah, I do agree. I think that the commentators that they had for this were really great. Anyways,
the game. Like I said, we did a great job of possessing the ball well. We did a great job of putting pressure on their defense without stretching ourselves and exposing our back line. Like we talked about, they had Gareth Bale and Dan James up there, both very fast players. And Zimmerman is pretty fast and Ream is not, as we've talked about. So we did a good job of keeping the ball in their half. Any breakouts were covered by two players right away. The play throughout the first half looked good. The one thing I definitely would say is that you could tell they haven't played together a lot. Several times, this was first half and second half, when we got down into the box, our final ball was like a yard off or a half a yard away. And that comes from playing together. That comes from this guy's running into this space. He's going to be here, and so I'll play it here. Versus, there's the space, so I'm going to play it, and he's going to run, and neither of us are quite sure where that's going to end up. That's where if we didn't have a lot of time, obviously because of this World Cup schedule, but most of the teams at the World Cup did get a friendly in. This past week, we did not. Watching that, I kind of wish we had. We had one more game speed with this starting lineup that they could figure each other out. Overall, it looked great. Wales has a good defense. Even the chances that we had, that early double chance with Weah's cross and Sargent's, header that hit the post. Even though we did manage to get the balls in the right spot, our attackers were outnumbered by their defenders. And that was true. The entire game except for the goal. So, how about you?
All right, so you said a lot. I'm about to say a lot, and I'm going to try to keep it to different segments of the game. So I'll piggyback off on something that you said in that Greg may have to answer for not playing a firmer starting 11 in those two friendlies, right? Lots of other teams really tried to make sure that their starting 11 guys, or at least the 16 or 15 that were there, played in a game. They tried to replicate. They tried to make it, as close to match model as they could, maybe without the intensity or the ferocity for injury's sake, but they got the guys in there for that game time, for that playing time, and it was something that we didn't, and we didn't I mean, you look at this starting 11 that we played in this game and the starting 11 that we had in the last two, they're not even close. You look at the way that the ball moved around, it's not close. You look at the way that we attacked, it's not close. And so the good news is we did what Greg has been saying we're capable of doing for the last 2 years, that everybody was sort of up and down on. You and I were a little bit more hit or miss on it. We did believe in Greg, but we also had a lot of our frustrations. But the rest of the media was significantly more negative, right? Most people believe that Greg was just blowing smoke, that he needed to give this thing up. And so I do think it's important to give Greg credit where credit is due. We played defensively as an entire unit. I have never seen the United States go after the ball when we lost the ball. I mean, Wales, we turned the ball over to Wales, and every single one of our players closed down a man in a space, and we got the ball back like that. Right?
It looked really good. Yeah, it looked great. And I mean, if you want to get into the goal, that's what happened. You know, and that's exactly what we said in one of our preview ones. That was, we said how we were going to score against Wales was keep them under pressure, keep possession on their end. When we lose the ball and they try to transition forward, winning it back quickly and playing it forward again quickly. And that's how we scored the goal.
Right.
I pushed up a little bit. We won it in the midfield or in the middle of the field. And it got played into Christian between the lines, and he turned and went forward. And we did do a good job of that throughout the game. Wales did a better job. For the rest of the game, they did a better job of keeping their defenders behind the ball than they did on the goal.
Correct. And when you look at the opening 15 minutes of the game, and you look at the way that the United States came out, the things that I really liked about it, obviously possession, right? I like that we had the ball. I like the chances that we had, right? So for everybody, and this is for Charlie Davies, I actually turned his podcast off earlier because I literally couldn't handle it. It was the In Soccer We Trust, and I love those guys, but when you're emotional and you're heated about the USA game, it doesn't take a whole lot from somebody else for you to just be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, right? And just get all emotional. And one of the things that he said was, he's like, he pauses and he's like, all these people in chat saying Josh Sargent had such a great game, and then he brings up this one reference of Josh Sargent losing the ball and whatever, and I immediately wanted to jump down his throat and be like, listen, okay, I'm not saying Josh Sargent had a great game or didn't have a great game, okay? My issues on our striker are the rest of the team not getting those players involved. But Josh Sargent, 9 minutes into this game, okay, wins a more difficult header. Granted, he's unmarked, right? He's completely unmarked. Has a more difficult header than any other ball that Ferreira or Haji Wright or Pepe or anybody has ever had, right? And it almost goes in.
Got it on goal.
Right? Yeah. He gets it. It hits the post and goes wide, but it's got the goalie beat. If that's inside the post, it's going in the net. Right? And their goalie was in a good spot. He had good positioning. And if you watch Josh Sargent, okay, and I want to transition. I want to transition over. Oh, no, I don't have that. I don't have the photo. I was trying to find a video clip. Really early on in the game, if you don't believe me, go watch the replay. Just watch the first maybe 10 minutes of the game, maybe even less. Josh Sargent ran and made runs like he does for Norwich City, and we just don't know how to hit the ball. Okay, and it's going to go into a bigger theme that I want to talk about is that when we were going forward, we did the same thing over and over and over again, and we kept doing it where it worked, and we were really scared to try places where it didn't work. So basically, here's what Josh Sargent did. Wales had their back four, and at times it looked like a back five, right, because they were playing a three. And when their guy slid back, Sargent would just run up and down their back three. And he tended to drift more towards midfield until we got the ball. And then he'd put his hand up, and he would, he'd wave, and he'd take off. And if you had the guts to do what they do in the Premier League, which is to hit a ball at a line drive on the ground, splitting those two defenders, he's gone. Right? He's not looking for that ball to go over the top. He doesn't want it there, right? You know where he wants the ball. And every single time he did this, we stopped, we turned around, and we went backwards. Okay? So our possession became a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we possessed the ball like crazy. On the other hand, we didn't do anything with it most of the time. I thought the first 15 minutes was fantastic because we were keeping possession and we were really, you could tell that there was a purpose to our rotating, right? We go to the right. Did Wales give us anything? No. Okay, cycle it back. Did Wales give us anything? No. But by the end of the first half and into the second half, you could tell our possession was more we're possessing to possess. The other thing that I thought we did really well that we needed to do more of was 3 times we played the ball over the top to Timothy Weah. 3 times we had goal-scoring opportunities.
I was going to say the same thing. And those were all early in the game. I think that's, speaks to what you're talking about, is we were a little braver with those kinds of things early in the game for whatever reason.
Yes.
I don't know if maybe we scored the goal and got comfortable. But you're absolutely right. And that's where you have to be able to do both. You have to be able to play possession and still take risks. You have to play the high reward risks, the ones that are going to be worth something. Making a run past his defender, that is a great, risk reward situation. Go for it.
Right.
Like you said, we did it 3 times and we got 3 goal scoring chances out of it, and it looked really good when we did it. And we should do it more.
We should do it more. I just sent you an image so you could see it. And I'm going to bring this over and kind of show everybody else this image because I really want to talk about it. This is really early on in the game, right? 5 minutes and 46 seconds into the game. And this exact moment is going to happen a lot, okay? It's going to happen a lot of times throughout the game, and I think it's really worth talking about. So right here, okay, in this situation, who is our 21? I'm blanking here. This is Weah. So Timothy Weah has dropped in with the ball, okay? I have my qualms about this because him and Dest kept making the same run, and on the other side, Pulisic and Robinson kept making the same run, but that's not really what I want to talk about. In this one specific situation, we got ourselves into this spot a lot of times, okay? We'd carry the ball into the middle of the field, and if you look, Weston McKennie's wide open, okay? If Weston McKennie turns and goes goalward, he's going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, or Adams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? He's going to put 6 Wales players out of the play, right? This one pass, okay? And when he turns, right, because you can envision this, you can see this happening in real time, right? If he turns with that ball,
absolutely,
he has McKennie to his right, he has Pulisic to his left, he has Robinson out even further left, and he has Josh Sargent as a flat ball in front of him. That is the most dangerous area on the field to get the ball. With the man of the match, Tyler Adams played out of his mind. He was easily the best player that we had on the field. And there were other players that were really good, so in some situations it was close. He was just the best player. We never wanted to make this pass, and we were too scared to go through the center of the field. And I'm telling you right now, if we don't have the guts to do that against England, we're not going to win this game. That ball has to go into the middle of the field. Adams has to turn, and he has to deliver the ball. Because in this situation, where's the ball go? It goes back to Zimmerman, it goes over to Ream, and then it goes over to Robinson or Yunus Musa. Sorry, Musa's dropped out over there. And we just kept doing that over and over and over again. And it eliminated our ability to control the center of the field with our talent. It eliminated the ability for us to play those through balls to Josh Sargent. And I want you to notice, the guy that's drifting off the right-hand side of that photo, that's the last defender for Wales. They are so high on the field. And 3 times we're going to play the ball to Weah. It's not a hard ball to hit over the back. Every single guy on our field could hit it, right? And all 3 times, not only is Weah going to get the ball, he's going to win it easy. Right? Normally when those flighted balls get played, you're expecting oh gosh, is he going to beat him? Is he going to make it? Shoulder to shoulder, he's going to... No. Weah just gently brings the ball
every
down.
time.
Yeah. And he torched him. And Weah's fast. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he didn't need to be. We probably could have put anybody we wanted on the right-hand side of the field and done this. And, as I watched, because, I was telling you, I was rewatching this game. As I rewatched this game, I like let this moment go past, and I was like, no, I need to stop and take a picture of this so I can talk about it, because this moment happened so many times. And my parents are sitting here, and I'm sitting on the edge of the couch, and I remember 4 or 5 times I just went right there, play the ball right there. Like what are you doing? Like, play the ball in the middle of the field. And like Dest would get the ball and he'd carry up, and I would just be I say go, right? So I said like that's literally, I felt like I said 2 things all game. I was either saying go, like go, capture the box, or I was saying play it right there. Play the ball right there. And after we wouldn't do it, I just remember turning to my dad at probably like the 20th minute, and I was like, why aren't we playing the ball over the top? Right? Like, we got to play the ball over the top. What do you see, right? Like you don't have to just talk about this image, but like, first 20 minutes of the game, things that are going right, like things that are going well. What did you wish we did more of?
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. Our midfield, those mid 3, and then Pulisic would cut in a lot to join the midfield as well. Our midfield is much more talented than the Wales midfield. Like, Wales' talent is on their defense and on their front line. Like, their midfield is fine, they're passable. Our midfield is better. They're better players. And you saw that several times. Musa would just cruise through them. He did it 3 or 4 times where he just, dribbled one and passed, a 1-2 around.
Man, that one run that he had,
one, and he was right
when he went all the way through.
I don't know.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. But in typical Musa fashion, I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to lose the ball to the first guy, and Wales is going to counterattack with 3 dudes. Like, what are you doing dribbling out of the back? But
yeah. And he did lose it, but it was the last guy instead of the first guy.
Correct.
No, what I wanted to see is just to be sharper. And again, I think this goes back to the level of preparation and not having a friendly, because they played really well. We passed the ball crisply. They were quick touches, but several times in the first half especially, we were moving the ball around, and we started to, bounce it around the middle of the field, and then suddenly a ball would be, a yard off the guy that way. And it's like, all of these good stuff is ruined by these silly little mistakes, and that's just, and maybe that's experienced young guys playing in their first World Cup and being a little nervous. Like, maybe that is true, but that lack of sharpness, cost us having several more chances than I think that we could have created if we'd been able to, maintain that type of movement.
I think more than anything, because I thought a lot about nerves, right? You look at, in the first 20 minutes, we got 2 guys getting yellow cards. Okay, I think the first yellow, I think the first yellow card is soft.
That was a terrible yellow card,
right? And but McKinney's you got to call, right? I mean, he just came through the back.
His back leg just came.
Right, it just rips him, and it's something that you saw in all of the games. So if you haven't had a chance to watch, Chris, I'm just filling you in. But if you have, so I've watched every game now since the tournament has been on, and the team who's been the underdog has always had guys sort of get hurt. Okay, so Qatar came out and got embarrassed. I mean, embarrassed, right? Ecuador scoring 3 minutes into the game. Granted, it gets ruled out, but just like completely outclassed. And in those moments, you saw players reckless, right? Like you're trying to play at a pace and a level that you actually can't do, right? You got a lot of emotion, you got a lot of adrenaline, you're hyped up for the World Cup, and you're just like, we're going to put the pedal to the floor and we're going to go for it. And we've all been that young guy that's just like, I'm just going to run on emotion and adrenaline because willpower, right? Like, my willpower is going to make it. If I can dream it, I can do it. And it's like, that doesn't work, right? You saw the same thing with Iran, right? In Iran trying to make it work against England. Like, that's not how that works. You can't just will things into existence, right? You have to have the talent. You have to have the commitment. And I was honestly shocked that it was the United States that came out really not under control, right? We didn't have a guy on the field really vocal in those first 5 minutes to just be like, what are you doing, right? Like, guys, let's be smart
Settle it
about this. Like,
down.
let's be settled about this,
Yeah.
right? When Dest throws that tackle, granted that like he gets the yell, which I think is ridiculous, but he needed somebody in his ear to just be like, hey, buddy, like, and maybe Zimmerman did, and he would just miss on the camera, but like him and Ream should be like, "Whoa, buddy, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, even if it's not a yellow, why are you throwing that tackle? Right? The Wales guy's sliding, just trying to get the ball
Yeah,
up the
like
line, and you're sliding in. What are you
yeah,
doing?
absolutely.
Right? You're just young, you're passionate, and you're just letting the moment get the better of you.
Absolutely.
And
To that end,
it
if I can
yeah, go for it.
interject, as far as the keeping your head in the game, um, this it happened throughout qualifying, and I'm getting frustrated with Lisick, and it's true that teams are purposely hitting him as much as possible, but they keep doing it because it's working, letting it get to him. You know, like 5 times in the first 20 minutes of the game, he got hit and knocked down, and he's getting up complaining to the ref about it.
Right.
They are taking you out of the play and making you focus on the ref and what the ref is doing and what they're doing instead of
Correct.
focusing on the play.
And they slowly took you out of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You're too high level of a player to let this
it's a
happen.
strategy
Correct.
that I hate. Yeah. It's a strategy I hate. Like, it's stupid that teams do it, but every CONCACAF team does it because they know they don't have the skill level to match him. And it worked. And the World Cup opponents saw it work. So now they're going to do it too.
Right. You're right. You're 100% right. And I think it's something that you as an experienced player, you have to learn when that doesn't work anymore. Right? Yeah. After the first couple tackles, make your appeal to the referee. But when you realize that things aren't going the way that they're going, you got to move on. Now, I'm going to go on this next statement, right? And I'm curious as to what your thoughts are, but it's going to be really contingent on you having watched the other games. So, in the first 3 games that I've watched, and my dad watched them all with me, we were very impressed at the refereeing. The referees were very calm. They were very composed. The game did not get away from them. Everything felt like it had a healthy standard. Okay. About halfway through this game, my dad and I both looked at each other, and my dad goes, and then he goes, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it because I think it's just the bias in me. And I went, no, go for it. And he goes, I don't think this referee's any good. He's like this. He goes, this is the first game that we've watched it. This referee just really feels lost. And I was like, I was going to say the same thing. I was so impressed. I was so impressed with the first 3 games. The referee was on top of it. Like, just the class that the referee handled the game with. There were things that happened in this Wales-United States game that would not have happened anywhere else. And I had one of those like, okay, I see how it is moments, right? When they make the announcement that we have the Qatar referees, right? Qatar beat us for the World Cup bid.
True. Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're going down this road. The United States had a federal investigation and arrested half the members of FIFA and basically revealed that Qatar bought this World Cup. We get the Qatari referees. This Qatar referee was in CONCACAF, and we know how the CONCACAF goes. And I'm telling you, Chris, this is not the wildest speculation. There are documentaries out now about all of this stuff. The way that FIFA voting works is every country gets 1 vote. CONCACAF is solely ruled by the Caribbean islands because they make up 25 of our votes, which means the CONCACAF Federation always goes in the direction that they go in. And the CONCACAF representative was Jack Warner. He was from Trinidad and Tobago. It is not a stretch of the imagination to put the pieces together and realize why the refereeing is the way that it is in United States matches and why the teams that get through and why the things go because all of the money is pointing to the Caribbean islands need to be the ones that are successful because they have all of the power. And if you want to go somewhere, you need to make those people happy because they're the ones who get to decide who the FIFA president is. And at first, I thought I was being ridiculous, and we watched 4 or 5 documentaries. I mean, we sat and watched for like 5 hours, and all of this stuff is coming to fruition. All this stuff is coming out, and I was like, this is not Like, I'm not really going out on a limb. Like, this is definitely what's happening. Is it getting as far as the referee? Sure, maybe that's my speculation. But it's certainly going as far as the direction of the federation as a whole, as far as the rules that they make, as far as the way they want to see fans involved and the types of games. And so, obviously digressing and being all over the place, and you can feel the passion. I just couldn't handle the fact that why us? Why did we get the referee that doesn't have any right being at the World Cup, that hasn't refereed any kind of a competitive game, that really was just kind of lost on the field, that didn't understand any of the protocols, any of the nothing, right? We have two incredibly soft yellow cards, one incredibly soft yellow card, and then another healthy standard yellow card. And then we have way worse tackles happening in the second half and way worse plays happening in the second half. And they just get like talking tos, right? We have random moments where the referee's saying play on, and then we have other moments where the referee's blowing the play dead because there's a player on the ground. I'll end my rant here. I just felt like this was ridiculous that we had to sit here and, did it have a massive effect on the game? I don't really think so. But who knows? Who knows?
I agree that the ref did not seem to really know what he was doing. And that's where the Dest yellow card comes off a little bit as like a power play, and like he was trying to establish himself as being in charge of the game, but he didn't take charge of the game because, like you said, he was inconsistent. And I really don't understand stopping the game, towards the end of the game. And I mean, he did it first for us, where he stopped the game for a player going down with just a foot injury. And that's not the rule. You don't do that. You stop the game as the ref if somebody has a head injury. Otherwise, you don't stop the game.
Right.
It's up to the players.
You could let us kick it out, right? But you don't stop it, yeah.
So he did it for us. And then he did it for Wales, and then he did it for Wales again. And when we had another one go down, he didn't do it for us.
Yeah, and Pulisic was, and that was, I was kind of over him at that point too, Christian's mentality. Yeah. But he was making the point of what in the world, dude? What? You got to make your mind up.
Yes, and that was really what the gist of it was that the ref did not really seem to know what he was doing.
Right. Okay, so second half rolls around, right? I had speculated subs at halftime. They obviously didn't happen. I don't think it was a surprise that McKinney and Dest are going to be the ones that come out. Obviously, they have yellow cards. But the second half rolls underway. Wales makes a substitution, right? Kiefer Moore immediately makes an impact in this game, right?
Wales starts changed the game.
Just completely changed the dynamics of the game, and Wales just starts trying to play balls over the top, right? Which blows my mind that they waited until the second half, because you knew it worked. You knew Zimmerman and Ream could get beat over the top, and you watched us creep up. I mean, most of the first half, all of our guys were in their defense or in their offensive half, right? So as soon as they start stretching it, and then we just look lost.
And this is where I think Greg got out-coached in that. Like you said, they brought in Kiefer Moore, completely changed how they attacked. Because they just kicked the ball to him and let everybody run up to join him when he won it. Bigger than everybody, and he won every ball that came up to him.
Right.
And so we needed to adjust how our midfield responded to that. The defenders were doing a fine job. They weren't letting him get past them, which is their job, to stop him from getting past them. Moore's job is to hold the ball until the rest of his team catches up. And so it's our job to have our midfield be able to anticipate that and not let that second ball happen. And we didn't.
Right.
That's on Greg.
It has to be on Greg. 100%. And
that's on Greg to tell his players trust their positioning, be aware of it, anticipate it, whatever. But he needs to tell them that that's what they need to do.
Correct. And I'm confused because you watched the United States side in the first half that had a full team press, right? Every guy going to the ball, every guy trying to turn the ball over, and then all of a sudden you're watching this ball get played to Kiefer Moore, and we just lost our marks. We just didn't know where we were supposed to go. We didn't know who had what.
And that's where I think there needs to be that communication from the coach, because that's what they were trying to keep doing. The press. The press doesn't work when you're doing it backwards. Like the ball's in front of you, everybody can press, and you can stay up on your man, and when your man gets the ball, you can hound him for it. But when they kick the ball over your head, you can't then turn around and try to press the guy from the other side. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
The ball's going over your head, you have to readjust how you're marking, and where you are in relation to your man has to be different than when they're trying to play it through on the ground.
Completely agree. And it really, this game really becomes the tale of two halves, right? You have this first half where the game goes the way the United States wants it to go. Everything plays into our favor, and we sort of set the tempo early, and we're able to just stay on top of them and roll with it. And the second half opens up, right? It's not a surprise that in the first half we kick off and second half Wales kicks off. And I think I agree with you. I think Greg gets this all wrong. And, backing up real quick, if you're somebody who's going, wait, what do you mean? You're going to blame the coach for this? Like, why are you going to be blaming the coach? Right? I understand the players on the field have this responsibility, right? And if we had an older team and we had half of our squad, 3/4 of our squad that had played in the World Cup, I'd be putting more blame on these guys to be like, what are you doing? Right? Why are you guys still banging your head against the wall? It doesn't work. But you're right. This is a young squad that doesn't have a leader. That who knows what Greg told them in the locker room? I mean, somebody does. It was probably there. I didn't hear about it. But we needed to change.
Well, from what I saw, if I can speak to that. Actually, I read an article that.
So what did Greg tell them in the locker room?
Most of his halftime was that they needed to keep pushing hard and not let up, and not slow down. They needed to keep the high tempo movement and keep the high pressure on. And that is true if Wales had kept playing the same way. When they got back on the field, Wales was playing differently. And we needed to change how we responded to that. And we needed to change our approach. We didn't.
You're right. You're 100% right. And you got to give credit to the Wales coach, Rob, somebody. You got to give him credit, right? And his first game as the Wales head coach was against the United States, and he made an adjustment that paid off. And even more credit to the Wales team, because they smelled blood in the water as soon as it started working, and they just went for it.
Oh, yeah,
right?
They did. I mean, they committed to it, and they kept after it. I think what's frustrating is, my coaching experience is, a low-level high school coach. Like, that's what I've coached. And yet I can see that the way you were playing is not working, and you need to change it. Like, why are you not seeing this? And, Greg has a whole staff of coaches. Why is nobody telling him? Because when we were playing the high press in the first half, Musa and McKennie both stayed pretty far outside. Like, even on defense, they were towards the edges of the field, because that was where they could press, the Wales wingers. And they left Tyler Adams to deal with the two central Wales players, because he has great range and he can do that. And in the second half, when they're playing the ball over the top, and Bale is dropping underneath more, there's nobody there to cover him. So all you needed to do was tell McKennie and Musa to not play so wide, to pinch in more, and when the ball goes over their top, they need to turn around and find Bale or Wilson, I think was the other one. Find them and get tight on them. How can I see that? And these, professional coaches who played professionally, can you not see that?
Right. I don't know. And it could have been a lot of things. Obviously, you give them a little bit of that time to make that transition, right? Maybe after the first 10 minutes, you're thinking, all right, well, it's not worth switching yet. We can still get in there. We can still make this thing happen. But it has to happen when the substitutions come in, right? And so the substitutes are all lining up, and we know who we're going to see, right? Well, let me back up. We don't know who we're going to see. We know who we know is going to leave the pitch, right? We had a good idea that
McKennie had to come off.
We knew McKennie had to come off, and we figured Dest was coming off, right?
And honestly, I think McKennie should have come off
right.
At least 5 minutes, maybe more like 10 minutes earlier.
Correct. So we knew he was coming off, and we knew we had a lot of options for him, right? I
Yeah,
don't think
absolutely.
anybody was surprised to see Aronson. I know we could have seen Reyna.
Yeah, he was a great choice for it.
There was no way it was going to be Acosta coming in that position. That just didn't seem to make any sense. Acosta doesn't really kind of play that role. So that substitution comes in. And then we see other guys lining up on the sidelines. And I'm a little surprised at who we bring in. And so, Yedlin has to come in because you're either playing Yedlin or Scally, and the game's too close at this point to bring Scally in. I'm just not doing it. So Yedlin's going to come in. Okay, that's fine. He's already right back. I can live with this. Haji Wright coming in up front for Josh Sargent. Maybe, right? I don't think that's where that substitution needed to be. I'm not saying anything against Haji Wright. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying yes or no to Haji. I'm saying, why are we subbing a striker?
Yeah, because he's not the one who he was making the runs, like you said, and not getting the service. Haji Wright was making the same runs. That's not changing.
Correct. And he still didn't get any services,
honestly,
and he still didn't get any chances.
He was actually less mobile than Sargent. So, I don't know if maybe that was Greg's thought, is like he will stay higher and we'll just try to hit the ball back up top to him more. Like maybe that was the thought, but I
think really Greg just looked at what Wales was doing and was like, why don't we just do that? Like, let's just play the ball to some big guy up front and just have him hold on to it, right? So then we see Yunus Musa coming out for Acosta.
Except we didn't play the ball to him ever.
Right.
That was, yeah.
Right. So now, right, with all the substitutions we have, okay, it's so apparent that our identity on the field has changed. We don't have the midfielders to carry the ball, right? Weston McKennie, granted, he didn't carry the ball a lot in this game. It's not going to happen. Yunus Musa was carrying the ball. That's done. It's not going to happen. Acosta's not as good at knocking the ball around in the midfield, right? So that's, it's just done. And we have Aronson, who just really wants to run, right? He's going to try to play in the midfield like a winger. Tyler Adams is still there, right? That whole midfield identity changes. Your right back making overlapping runs has changed. And the striker that you were trying to get into the game, you're trying to work Josh Sargent into the game, you're failing to do so. Now you got to try to work a completely different striker into the game, right? And we're obviously not gonna, right? It just doesn't seem to happen. And we spend the entire second half, we look tired, we look frustrated. I mean, I thought we were gassed. I could not believe how exhausted I thought our team was for being the second youngest squad on the field. And maybe it was because we just did pointless, needless running, right? But it seemed to be no reason why we had moments where we just gave up in the press and we just gave up with the ball. And all of a sudden, Wales starts to look dangerous and explosive. Because in the first part of the second half, yes, Kiefer Moore's being dangerous. Yes, Wales is getting the ball up. They're not really generating anything, right? The game got more interesting because it goes back and forth, but it wasn't till midway through the second half, later in the second half, where Moore misses that header, and all of a sudden we're like, we better start to reel this in because this is going to get ugly, right? Then Turner makes his save.
Oh, I thought the Acosta for Musa was a mistake. The other ones, like you said, Yedlin had to come in because Des was struggling. But that being said, they put a lot more pressure on us through that, their left-hand side than we were getting. So Yedlin obviously is not as good as Dest. Acosta for Musa was a mistake. Musa was playing great. He was one of the ones who didn't look tired. Kenny looked tired. Dest looked tired. Honestly, Pulisic looked pretty tired.
Yep, he did.
Weah, at the very end, Weah looked tired, but around the time they were subbing, he looked like he was still doing pretty good. So I don't know why he took Musa out. And then, Wales' goal is unfortunately Acosta's fault. There was the throw in, and Acosta, I don't know if he was supposed to track the guy or if he didn't communicate with Robinson, but that guy ran by both of them, and they both were shocked and turned and chased him. And that led to him playing that super dangerous ball across the box. And I'm so frustrated. Every analyst that I have seen is like, why is Zimmerman throwing that tackle? He shouldn't be going in to tackle it like that. And I'm like, did you watch the play? Zimmerman didn't have any idea that Bale was there. He stepped up to win the ball, and Bale is really fast, especially on those 2-3 quick steps. He's smart. So he real quick threw his leg in front of Zimmerman's leg and won a penalty.
Correct.
Like, if you watch Zimmerman's eyes, he's watching the ball. Like, he knows there are men over here, but he sees that ball get played, across the box, like right to his penalty area, penalty spot. And so he sees it coming, and he puts the leg out to stop it getting past him. And, like I said, Bale is smart and quick, and he threw his leg in front of it. Won a penalty. So...
Right, and that's the experience that you have in players like that, right? And here's the one thing that I'm going to say, because this is another thing that just drove me nuts in the media, okay? And I'm going to say this, and this is it can be a hot take if you think it's a hot take, okay? Gareth Bale did not do anything that whole game, okay? He didn't. Gareth Bale he got outclassed, he got outplayed, and he's still a great player. He was still great, right? He's still a great player. But he didn't look dangerous. Kiefer Moore looked dangerous. Kiefer Moore punished us.
Oh, yeah. Kiefer Moore was by far the most dangerous.
Gareth Bale, they kept saying his name, and every time they'd say his name, Tim Ream would take the ball from him. And I was like,
no, he was not
okay. Great. And then they're like, oh, here he is. And they're saying, oh, it's the moment, and these players shine. I was like, he scored a penalty, right? And if anybody wants to go like, oh, you don't understand.
Won the penalty.
Right. He won it, right? And there's his moment of brilliance, right? He understood what being in the box means. He put his body in the way that he's supposed to, and he knew he was going to draw contact, and he knew he was going to get the penalty. And it's a great play. That's a penalty. It's 100% a penalty. There's no way you're going to argue your way out of it. You just tackled the dude. You just ripped him down in the box. It's one of the easiest calls the referee can make. Aside from that, and we're the United States, right? I have the authority to say this. Landon Donovan's not the best player in U.S. soccer just because he scored 50 penalty kicks. Okay? So
he's definitely not.
I don't care that Gareth Bale scored a penalty kick. That doesn't make you a big star in a big moment. That doesn't make you delivering on a big... No. Half the players on Wales' team could have scored that penalty, and he almost missed. Matt Turner almost had this.
He hit it hard enough.
He just cranked it. Right? He just cranked it. You want to see a solid penalty kick, you go back and watch the penalty kicks that happened earlier in the day. I can't remember what that was. Oh, Ecuador, when Ecuador won their penalty, and he literally just hit it, and it, rolled. I mean, he hit a pass at, half speed. He had such confidence. But anyway, so, again, right, the goal happens. But here's the problem now that we have. None of those subs go get you a goal. None of them. You put on a whole bunch of subs that were designed to park the bus and pack the box, and it backfired. And now you're stuck in the final, which the clock said, 3 or 5 minutes, but FIFA has now said we're going to try to actually play the real 90 minutes. So you knew there was another 10 minutes in the game.
Yeah.
And you have nobody, right? But, hold on, we got one saving grace. We got one of those little white boxes left. We got a sub. We can do it, Greg. We can put a guy on the field. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put a card in. I'm going to wave my finger here so that I remember to put a card in this thing, because every single one of us talked about the U.S. roster, and we said we didn't give a crap that Jordan Morris was coming. Why? Because he's 4th on the depth chart, and he's not going to see any playing time. He wasn't going to play! And guess what Greg does? Greg decides that's my go-to guy. I'm going to put in Jordan Morris when the game's on the line, because
we want to score a goal.
What in the world? And I'm going to pull out.
Oh, I know.
Tim Weah? You should have just pulled Matt Turner and put Jordan Morris in goal. That's the same message you're sending.
No, absolutely. I was watching this with two guys who, they don't follow it nearly as closely as I do, but they like it and they kind of get it. And, when the announcer said Jordan Morris getting up off the bench, I sat up, I stared at the TV. I was like, really? Did he say Morris? I was like, why did he not say Reyna? Why is it not Gio Reyna? And, they put Morris in, and I asked the question like 5 more times before the
Right.
game ended. Why the heck is that
Well,
Morris
where is
and not
he?
Reyna?
He just scored!
Greg said he's trying to ease him back into it. And yet Gio said he's 100%. This is the freaking World Cup. There are 3 games to get through the group stage. Don't ease back into 3 games.
Reyna would have played with a broken leg.
And also,
it's the World
easing
Cup.
Back in, and easing back in, it was, like you said, like maybe 12 to 15 minutes left. How is that not easing him back in?
Right. Greg blew it. Greg blew it.
15 minutes of game time is nothing to a 19-year-old kid. Absolutely. I have no idea why that was not Reyna. That was like the absolute worst decision. Okay, maybe not the worst. That was one of the worst decisions that Greg has made in his tenure, and he's had some bad ones.
Right. He's had some horrible ones. And what's crazy was, I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, okay?
Because I just want to say real quick, I have the notes here on my screen, and, they're all like a normal, quick lines, I don't know, half the line. At one, big caps lock and just 2 words. Why Morris?
Right. Just why?
Why?
What are you doing?
I don't know why.
And this is where I went. Okay, so I'm gonna show you this roller coaster that I run, right? Starting lineup. Sorry, I was going from left to right. Here's me, starting lineup, and I'm way up here, and I'm just like I'm on the Greg train. I'm like, yes, dude, like. Because I was, before the World Cup, I was down here. I was like, I don't know, Greg. Like, I'm never going to pull this off. I see the starting lineup, right? Or I see the roster, and then I see the starting lineup. I'm like, we're going to get there. And then the subs come in, and I kind of go down a little bit. And, Ryan's like, well, you're not upset about Yedlin? And I'm like, well, who else are we going to put in, right? Like, I can be a reasonable person, right? Like, I'm not going to play Joe Scally here. And I love Joe Scally. I'm a huge Joe Scally fan. But I got to make a smart play. You got to just suck it up, right? And then Haji Wright, I don't know. I really like Josh Sargent. I don't think this was a Haji Wright moment, but again, whatever, right? And I'm just kind of dwindling, and I'm watching Wales climb back in, and I'm watching our tactics. And then Jordan Morris comes in, and I'm like, maybe we never left. Like, maybe Greg blacked out for the first, hour before this game, and a bunch of other coaches were just like, hey, Greg, you forgot to submit the starting lineup. I'm just envisioning, somebody from the FIFA match officials was like, your starting lineup was due, 3 minutes ago. And somebody from the USA was just like, right? They just, really quick, they had it on the app. You could actually make your own, you could make your own lineup on the app. Maybe they just, pulled their phone out, like, oh, I got it right here. And they just, showed them, and then we got it. And then at halftime, Greg was like, listen, you're fired. You're fired. And we're going to go back to playing the Greg way. Because that's what it felt like. It felt like we had, this young talent. We were going for it. My dad couldn't believe it. Literally, he's sitting here, he goes, I don't, you watch this game more than me, Tim, but, these guys are really good. He's like, we look really good.
Yeah, we did. We looked really good.
And we needed to look really good, because if you watch the England game, we're in big trouble on Friday.
And, I did have to question. I did not watch the whole game. I watched the extended highlights of the game. And through the highlights, England looked really freaking good. But, does that mean England did play well, or did Iran play poorly? Was it a little bit of both?
It was a lot of both, and I'm telling you right now, England made it look easy. So here's something that I do think is worth noting. The United States and England played the exact same style. Okay? I mean, to a T. Ball movement, possession, everything. England is better in the final third. Okay? And it's not a surprise, right? Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, right, and Bukayo Saka. Yes. So Iran played defense significantly worse.
Foden, right. Mount, Bellingham, Grealish.
Correct. So Iran's defense was significantly worse than ours, and they got punished for just this overwhelming excitement, and their goalkeeper got hammered early on. And I felt horrible for the dude. If you didn't see the highlight, he came out to try to win a ball, and as he won it, his defender was running this way, and they didn't see each other, and just head-to-head whiplash. He got a concussion. He tried to play on. They eventually had to pull him. I don't think the goalie had anything to do with this game, because England just went absolutely buck wild. But England's finishes They just
I mean,
wanted
their
the
goals
ball.
were very good.
Like they wanted the goal. And here's what's scary, right? So here's how we differentiate the United States and England. Here's where we're not yet. England lines up 4 subs. Okay? These are guys coming off of their bench to replace guys in the field. Eric Dyer, who's starting center back for Tottenham, who's in the top 4 of the Premier League. Marcus Rashford, who starts for Manchester United, who's competing for top 4. Phil Foden, who starts for Manchester City, who's second in the Premier League. And Jack Grealish, who starts for Manchester City, who's second in the Premier League. And I sat there, and I didn't even have to say it because the commentator went, imagine being one of Iran's defenders and having to deal with Harry Kane and Bukayo Saka and Raheem Sterling all game to finally have them subbed out and to realize you get to deal with Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, and Marcus Rashford for the rest of the game. And my dad looked at me, and he was like,
absolutely true.
And he was just like, ay, like, we better be ready on Friday. And I was like, I think our defenders are going to be up to the task, but we got to get some goals.
My thing for England is, and I mean, what it comes down to really now is we have to play better against England and Iran than Wales does. Because the reality is we're getting the same results.
Right.
The most likely thing is we both lose to England and we both beat Iran.
Correct.
And so
this is what's up
England,
this is what's up. I sent you the other thing that's up on the screen now.
Okay. So versus England, I know that we can score more goals than Wales can against England. I absolutely believe that. England's defense is sketchy. I'm so happy that Southgate is in love with Harry Maguire because he sucks. Being a Manchester United fan, you know that Harry Maguire sucks, and people can try to argue that all they want, but Harry Maguire sucks.
He might not play. He got a concussion.
Well, I mean, true.
But yeah, like he was getting booed on the field.
So the reality is we have a better attack than Wales. We will score more goals against England. We probably lose like 3-2, 2-1 to England.
Chris, that's if we score. We got to score first.
So I believe we'll score against England. Wales will stop more of England's goals, though. So, where is the balance there? Are we going to score more goals than Wales, stops? Or are they going to let more in? I don't know.
Well, let's get into that. Right? So up on the screen now is, you and I will kind of slowly work our way through this because this is the thing that's super weird for people, and it's very hard to understand if you are not a soccer person. Okay, so every group has a table like this, and it gets updated after every game, and it's the standings. And what you're going to see from left to right is the number of games that the team has played, obviously wins, draws, and losses. So in the rest of the world, we do it backwards. In the United States, it's wins, losses, and draws. They do it the way that makes the most sense, which is the most number of points, then the next, and then none. So wins, draws, and losses. Then we have goals for, goals against, goals differential, and points. So at the end of these 3 games, whoever has the most points, that top number, is going to go through. But if you have the same number of points as someone else, in order to figure out which one of you goes through, the goal differential will be the number that they look at. So to tie this into what Chris is saying, right? When Chris was saying, I think we're going to do better in the England, because we drew Wales, and Chris, I completely agree with you. I think you're dead on the money. Everybody I've talked to today, I said the same thing. This group just turned into who is going to get beat the least badly by England. So whichever team puts up the best result against England has the best shot at getting out of the group, because as far as the United States and Wales are concerned, our game might as well just not have happened. It didn't affect our goal differential. It didn't affect the point. It didn't affect anything, right? But England is going to play us next. And I think that is a small detriment to the way that the group could unfold, because if England beats us, there's a chance they don't care against Wales, and Wales might get a draw or some kind of a result.
Yes, unfortunately, That's very true.
Unfortunately. So now we're going to get into this weird speculation. I'm asking everybody to kind of bear with us here. Let's say that the United States loses to England and we beat Iran. That means the United States will have a win, a draw, and a loss. We'll be at 4 points. Okay? Let's assume Wales does the same thing, because I don't think that's an unrealistic assumption. Wales will then also be 1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss. That will make Wales and the United States both at 4 points apiece. It will make Iran nowhere, and it will make England probably with 9 points sitting atop the group. The way that the United States will then have to get through is our goal differential, which means either we beat Iran worse than Wales beats Iran, or we lose.
I think we should.
I think we should, or we lose to England less badly than Wales does, or some combination of the two. So, for instance, if we play England on Friday and we get beat 4-0, we're in big trouble.
That'll be bad.
Because not only do we got to win and overcome a 4-goal deficit. Right? Oh, Ember. You see my poor dog over here? She's in the cone of shame, and she's literally just standing here. Ember, come here. Come here, sweet girl. I'll give you some pets. You poor girl. Come here. Come here, sweet girl.
Can't move.
She doesn't want to move. She's so embarrassed about the cone. So now she's just going to be on TV being embarrassed about the cone. But here's where it gets beneficial for us, though. If we get a draw against England, right, and then we beat Iran, now we're at 5 points. And now all we need is for Wales to lose to England in that final group. Right? And as much of a nerve-wracking, I hate it moment it is, from a spectator stance, it does give you that rush, and it does make you just love every single second of this tournament. But if you didn't catch on this and you didn't understand any of these things, that's what the whole group stage is going to be about. But let's go down the crazy hypotheticals just so we can say we educated you. Chris, here it comes. If at the end of the tournament or the end of the group stage, the United States and Wales have the same number of points and have the same goal differential, the next tiebreaker will be the total number of goals scored for the team in the entirety of its matches. So if we have the same goal differential, but Wales has scored 6 goals total and we have scored 5, the United States will be out. Let's say we're still tied. Wales has 6 goals for, the United States has 6 goals for. You will get through. This is wild to me. I don't even understand how this would happen. You go through based on your single best result, points-wise. So if this is going to get... So if, let's say United States and Wales draw all 3 games. Okay? We finish the group stage each with 3 points. We each have 4 goals for and 4 goals against. That's our goal differential. It will be the single points result. And since none of us have a win, nobody has that 3 points better than 1 point to get them through. The next becomes your head-to-head matchup. So if you finish with the same number of points and all the other things as your opponent, but you beat them, you'll go through. And then the next tiebreaker is the most goals scored in a single game. I don't think we're going to get to any of these, and I know that somewhere down that list is like the number of corner kicks taken. But I've just said those things to be silly. But realistically, Chris, you said it. You hit the nail on the head. It's going to come down to that England game, and I do think that you're right. If we lose to England 3-2, it will be better than losing to England 2-0 or even 1-0.
Absolutely, because that's what the reality is, and that's what we saw this game. We're better at scoring goals than Wales. Wales is a little bit better at defending, especially defending against a lot of chances than we are. And so, if the tiebreakers do come down to goal differentials and goals for, we have that edge over Wales, I believe. Then again, like you said, if England has 2 wins going into their final game against Wales and they just, they mail it in, might be in trouble.
Right. But, we also could sit here and hope. And that's why you're going to see some of these teams get really outclassed.
You need to crush Iran.
Right. I mean, that's why England poured on 6 goals. That's why England did not let up,
Yeah.
because they knew that goals was going to matter. It's why I think Argentina is going to wall up Saudi Arabia tomorrow morning. I have that game. I have that game predicted at 6-0. I had the England game predicted at 4-0, so I got the deficit right. I just didn't get anything else right, but I don't know, man. This is going to be a nerve-wracking week. I'm going to get a lot of gray hairs, and I don't know how much I'm going to sleep. The good news is it's going to be over a long Thanksgiving weekend. But man, oh man, I just couldn't do it. I mean, I was so excited when Tim Weah scored that goal, dude. I mean, I could have screamed for 5 full minutes. I didn't, to spare my dogs and my parents. But I mean, man, I was like, we're back. It was everything. It was everything in that moment that we've been waiting for, right? As a nation, like, we needed to beat Wales. We needed to come out. We had all the play. We had all the tempo. And then all of a sudden, like you said, boom, they try to transition. We win the ball. Pasilic is in. All he's got to do is play the ball through. He plays the ball through. Weah, just a beautiful, composed finish. It goes right in the corner. And it's just like the roar, right? Like the roar. And you could see it on all the players' faces. Glorious. Right, they're all wearing it on their faces. This, yes, like, we did it. We got here. We did it. Yeah, let's go. Like, they were just there. And we got a chance to be in it there with them. And, you know, when that penalty kick happened and Bale scored that thing, it was just like silence. Like, I wasn't mad. I was just like, I was defeated. Just like that, just silence. I just stood there and it was like, it was gone. It was the same way that I felt, and I hate talking about this, the same way that I felt when we punted that game against Portugal. Right? To just be like, we had it. Like, that's not fair. It was right here. We're supposed to have this. We're supposed to win this game. We're supposed to get out of our group. We're not supposed to have to worry about England.
Yes, exactly. That was the plan. The plan was beat Wales, beat Iran. Whatever happens in the England game happens, and oh well. That was the plan that needed to happen. And we didn't.
Right.
The reality is we had lots of chances to get a second goal, and we, as I said before, that final ball was just off by a yard or a few feet.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Each time.
Well, it makes it for an interesting
event. Why Jordan Morris?
I don't know, man. I don't know. If you haven't seen the commercial, there is a Santa Claus commercial. It is not the one about the sweaters and with the giant Pulisic thing and all that other stuff and saying the holidays. It's not that. It starts off with a letter getting written to Santa Claus, and it's them saying, I want the United States to win the World Cup, and basically saying, because Santa, you said that as long as we believe, it will happen. And if you haven't, I mean, I watched that before this game, and I got goosebumps. And it was just one of those, like, you're just at those magical moments. Like, I think about this, and I'm just like, that's the sport, man. Like, that's it. That's how you feel when you stand there, right? It's that clean slate. It's that fresh start, and I'm going to feel it against England. I'm going to stand there, hands on the side of my face, standing next to the television, watching the whole game, being like, any moment could be the moment. We could score that goal. We could strike first, right? And we could have
Absolutely
it.
Could.
We could have that moment. All we got to do is believe, Chris. All we got to do is believe.
Well, let's believe. We're going to beat England.
I believe.
It's not going to matter that we tied Wales.
I believe that. I believe that we
will win.
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. All right, Chris, any last words?
Where's Gio Reyna?
Right, where's Gio Reyna? I would expect to see a lot more speed and talent against England. I think we're going to see a different starting lineup. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ferreira at this point. He gave the other two strikers a chance. I mean, I'd like to see Josh Sargent in because I think he's got more experience against the guys from England and he plays a similar style, but outside of that, if I saw the same starting 11, I would be happy. The England game is going to be a blood battle. This Friday, 2 p.m. Coverage starts at 1 p.m. It is on Fox. If you are an American and you believe in America, watch this game, right? We statistically have a great resume against England, right? We won the Revolutionary War. We beat them in 1930-something. We had a tie against them in 2000 and whatever it was. 14, I think. 2014. We're back. USA. We're going to make this happen. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. We'd love to hear your comments. It's going to be rapid fire. Hopefully there's lots of videos even after the group stage if we make it through. But we appreciate you guys giving us a chance to just continue to promote this wonderful game and this team. And we're so excited for these young guys to go in and get it. We will see everybody Friday or Saturday morning whenever we get this video up from the game. I believe that we will win. I hope that you believe that we will win. Thanks for tuning in to Extra Time.
We love you. We love you.